so I think we can open our December 10th Budget Committee meeting of 2020. I will take attendance, go down through the roll call. Tom Bukowitz.
Sorry, here.
That's okay. John Decker.
Present.
I am present. Sean Green.
Here.
Sandra Jones.
Here.
Michelle King.
Here.
Michael Keister.
Here.
Tom LeVay.
Here.
Carol Martin. She hasn't joined quite yet. John Moran.
Here.
And Jim Stevens.
Here.
All right. I think I had emailed everyone that, here's Carol joining now, that Kathy Brosnan will no longer be representing the school board as on the budget committee, that Carol has rejoined the budget committee in an official capacity. So welcome back officially, Carol, as the school board liaison to the budget committee. And I think I didn't have it on the agenda, but I know Lorraine had sent out the most up-to-date minutes for the meeting, our December 1st meeting. I think she sent them out on Tuesday. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those minutes? And would the board the committee be prepared to vote and approve those minutes?
I have.
I sent in some recommendation for adjustments about 24 hours ago and have not heard that those were posted to the official copy yet. So
Yeah, I reviewed them. I have a couple of minor changes that I could just talk verbally about.
I think it would be easier if you just sent them to me then. And I don't have Mike's email.
really,
Oh,
Okay, you and I can-
I've got it here. I'll forward it and we can just do it another night then.
Okay. Thanks, Lorraine. So if you can send those along, we'll plan to vote on those minutes and most likely the December 3rd minutes at our next meeting on December 17th, which is a Thursday. There is no meeting on Tuesday, December 15th, just so everybody knows. It'll be on Thursday. So we'll get right into it. Welcome, Chris and John Moran. I don't know if either of you wants to give us a quick town update before we get into the proposed town budget for 2021.
On Monday, we should have our official acknowledgement of our hiring of our new police chief. And again, we've been working on this, going over the budget last meeting. Discussing future things we have to discuss for next year, with roads, 911 roads, changing things up. So a lot of in-house and talking about stuff to do with the fund balance that we're going to have. So probably by next meeting, after our Monday meeting, I should have some more details for you on stuff like that.
Any other updates? No, I know. Did you have your meeting on Monday evening? Was that about the roads too, John?
Setting a standard for road standards. Yes, we did have that, and that did pass from the board from a 4-1 vote, and just set parameters for what future roads in town should be for standards for, like, if a road we own in town, if a new road comes up, what it should be and how we should set it up for width, distance, curbing. It's kind of a generalized, pretty much run by most of the state. So there wasn't really too much different we didn't do from our standards, but we just felt like they needed some sort of guideline for a standard of what a town road should be. But it had nothing to do with emergency lanes or anything like that.
Oh, okay. All right, so if there's no other updates, we can just move right into the proposed budget. I just want to remind everyone, so at our last meeting, we reviewed the school default budget. As a reminder, with the default budget, it kind of is what it is. except for those contractual items that might be increasing any one-time expenditures from the prior year. With the proposed budget, this is where we have the opportunity to ask questions of Mr. Sterndale or Mr. Moran as whether to certain needs for these expenses, and then make proposals to whether or not to increase, decrease, or remove certain line items from the budget, with a motion and a second and discussion, and then a vote on that motion. And then, yeah, I think that was it. So, Mr. Sterndale, did you want to move right into the budget?
Yeah, sure. If John has nothing else.
Unless you figure I forgot something.
What's that, John?
Unless you figure I forgot something.
No, I think you got all the high spots. Tim, just to clarify, you don't intend to do edits and amendments tonight, right? We're in an early enough draft. You typically do that later.
Okay. Well, I think there'll probably most likely be questions then.
Okay. It's
Very
this ends up being your document, so you can edit it whenever you wish. But we have historically done that after a later draft. But certainly, whatever questions or comments you have now will help us get to the final draft. So, all right, I'll just dive in. What you have is a little bit later first draft than maybe you're accustomed to. We're a little bit further along in our development than we often are at first draft point. You have actual expenses through November 30. This year, the actuals are really not that informative. It's been such an odd year in so many ways that the budget's really kind of a mess, but a mess in a good way. In that we're going to finish the year with a pretty sizable surplus between vacancies, programs that didn't happen because of the pandemic, or scaled back road maintenance projects. Really large changes in operations throughout the year. It's ended up requiring a lot less in the way of expenses. So the actuals that you see are not anywhere near complete for the full year. We do have some encumbrances and major purchases left, but we will finish the year with several $100,000 in surplus that will return to the unassigned fund balance at year end, which John hinted at. Looking ahead to next year, the draft that you have in front of you is there's not a lot in the way of major changes in staffing or program. There's some small tweaks, but this is generally proposing that we keep most of our operations and staffing levels the same. You'll see on the very last line that at this point we're projecting a proposed increase of 2%, or about 80,000 over last year's 4.1 million. I will go through, I guess, just kind of section by section and talk about big ticket items and big changes. If you want to keep it at about that level, interrupt me if you have questions or thoughts. Is that a good level of detail?
Yeah, I think that's good. Just a reminder to the budget committee, if you do have a question on a certain line item, if you could make sure that you mention the line item in the account name when you're addressing that.
Okay. First section, executive, not much happening there. Just a reminder on line 4, the merit compensation pool. This is how we budget for raises for employees for the year ahead. We don't ever show actual expenses in this line. They show up in their various payroll lines, but we leave room in the budget to pay for those by just pegging a percentage of the total payroll for the town-wide. So we have room in the budget to give merit raises, but we don't project them ahead of time by department or by employee where they're going to be. Not much else changing there. Move down to the town clerk, starting at line 26. The clerk has proposed expanding the office hours of that office. As you see in the note there, we don't know exactly which days and hours those are going to be, but she would like to be open to the public more hours each week. She's also currently looking for a deputy that will need to be trained. There's a very long training curve on that job, particularly for the DMV stuff. So what she has proposed is basically 3 months of side-by-side training with the clerk before that deputy is ready to work on their own. And those, the expanded hours and the extended training time are reflected in the line 26 increase there.
Chris,
Can
it
you-
kind of sounds like from the note here about it being that way for 20 years that there's some question as to whether or not it's necessary to expand it out to 24 hours per week.
That is her language, not mine. So I'm not questioning that.
Did she say why she's looking to expand hours or add a staff person? I mean, is she just swamped in there?
It's not adding a staff person. We've always had a deputy. We really need a second person capable of doing the motor vehicle registration stuff in particular. That function is not something that can be done by other town employees. You have to be trained by the state and under the auspices of the town clerk. So you really need a second person so that we can always be sure that that function is available to residents, and you can't take a month off from being able to register vehicles. So the second person isn't new. We just have a vacancy right now. And then to the broader question of do you need more hours? I can tell you that our office is next door. Pre-COVID, it was very common to have lots of people waiting to visit the town clerk. I mean, you may have lived through that yourselves. That and the recycling center are the only places that we really interact with every resident in town. And it, pre-pandemic anyway, had plenty of times where there was very long waits. So that would be the justification for her justification for additional hours.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I've been lucky. I've just never had too much of a wait. It's been maybe 3 or 4 people ahead of me at any given time. It just seems like that's a big jump from 16 to 24. I mean, I could understand the town has grown and everything, but I don't know. It
But
doesn't
as
seem
of
to be.
talking, sorry, Tom, but as of talking to the town clerk, the old town clerk and the new town clerk, there's a lot of hours that they actually spend after the scheduled hours that you're there that they're working.
Yeah, but this is talking about the amount of time that it's open to the public, right?
Right.
And
but during
don't
the
you have to
time,
make-
they're still doing the work, so they're not doing it after hours.
Don't you have to make an appointment now because of COVID? And doesn't that help eliminate the long lines if they can make appointments on the town website?
Yes, the appointments now are an effort to keep the people from gathering in the office and clumping together in the office.
Sure.
That's the primary motivator for that. We might find that after in post-pandemic times, once we're through a full year of everybody renewing online, we might find that the business shifts to more online. I know that's a conversation I've had with the clerk, but right now we're kind of forcing people to do things remotely that they may not want to with this appointment system.
I think getting the clerk up to speed on some of those activities has some other benefits as well, whether or not they're open any longer. But you know, getting another person up in that department doesn't seem like a bad thing.
Chris, right now with I guess I've been renewing online for a few years. Is the town involved at all when we renew online? Do they do they verify anything? Does that all go through the state pretty much, or are they preparing stuff behind the scenes?
Yeah, there's a lot of work behind the scenes. Basically, when you renew online, that turns in the envelope that you receive after you do that has the registration and the stickers and everything. That's coming out of the local town clerk's office. So it isn't as big a labor saver for the town clerk's office as it might be for you and not having to come down here. Some of it is automated. I'd have to defer to the clerk to detail it, but the paperwork side of it and the envelope and the mailing and all that stuff, that's all coming from here. It's not coming from Concord when you renew online.
Okay. So like the keying in, because I think that's the thing that takes the longest when you go to renew, is they're kind of manually keying in all that information. So they're basically still doing that. Just I'm not standing in front of her watching her.
Yeah, there's probably a step or two for them that is done because of your data entry that will carry through their systems. But there is still the document that you receive comes out of the printer on their desk, and there's a step for that. It's done in batches, but it's not a completely automated process with online renewal like you might hope.
It's probably actually more work on the clerk because she has to do the mailings now as part of that.
Right, you trade the handed across the counter for a mailing of that. I have to defer to her for any more detail, but that's my understanding of her process. Anyway,
With the actuals overrun on the budget in 2020, do you feel the 30,000 allotment here would be accurate in basically a third more work? Seems like it would end up being more than that if it's kind of scaled from the actuals that we got.
yeah, this is a case of not being able to trust the 2020 numbers as indicative of the future, because a big chunk of this was election related. All the absentee ballots, that hundreds and hundreds of additional absentee ballots that had to be processed in that office was a huge workload for a second person. So she for the 2021 number, she used more of a zero-based budget methodology. This many hours for this many people at this much per hour, rather than looking at last year.
Great, thank you.
I'm gonna move on to elections unless somebody interrupts me again on something else.
Oh, yeah, I meant to ask what the fees were. There's a line item for fees.
Yeah, fees are statutory fees that is one way of the clerk gets compensated. They get for most of their transactions, they get the fees passed through the town to the clerk by state law. So the clerk and the deputy end up, they don't take home a total of 30,000 for all that work for the year. It's more like a combination of those two line items. So they earn an hourly wage and they earn money from fees, as does the tax collector.
So that 51,000, that's not just taxpayer money, that's like there's revenue associated with that are paid in as fees, and this is just talking about how it's moved over?
Correct.
Okay.
There is offsetting revenue for that line 27 to the dollar. Yep. And you see that you see that in our revenue number. You don't have revenues tonight, but when you look at revenue, you will see in the town clerk, in the motor vehicle registration stuff, you'll see that revenue coming in. Okay, elections starting on line 35. We had 4 in 2020, as you all remember. Only town meeting this year, so things should get quieter. The supervisors of the checklist do have to do a purge of the voting list. So that'll take some labor, but other than that, it'll be a relatively quiet year. There is some chance that we come back to this. There may be some change in the method of voting and the method of deliberative session. We don't know yet, but we could see some small dollar changes in the election lines, but probably nothing dramatic as we get to the end. And you see all kinds of variances there this year because the whole election process was so different than we anticipated. Moving on, financial administration. Not any dramatic changes here. If you look at line 60, the tax collector has asked for the software capability to collect property taxes through either credit cards or ACH or e-check. ACH is what you use to renew your your vehicles online, similar system. This is something that she gets requests for routinely. We would buy the capability, and then anybody that wants to pay their property taxes that way will pay a user fee, just like you do with the vehicle services now. I don't know those amounts off the top of my head. It's a couple of bucks for an e-check and more than that for a credit card. But there actually are many people that would like to pay with a credit card because of the rewards or kickbacks they get. So that's something we get requests for.
Is that a one-time expense to add that capability, or is that a recurring thing?
That I think is a combination of both. There's a piece of that as a one-time, and then there's a piece of it that's recurring. I'll have to break that down for you. I don't know what the breakdown is.
Then,
find out.
do you have some idea what this other almost $8,000 in software licenses is?
Yeah, that's the module for our that's the software that runs our tax collection operation. It is it's a module that is linked to our assessing software and our and it's actually linked to our building inspection software as well. So the data from tax bills comes direct from our assessing system.
I assume that reduces the amount of work on the tax collector quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it's essential to cook up your own way of doing that with the data would be heinous. It's doable, but and that comes with really good support too. I've worked with 3 tax collectors, and they've all relied quite a bit on the support that comes with that software. So I think that's good value there. I'll keep rolling on. AS is assessing. Call your attention to line 76 and 77. We contract with Avatar to both perform the assessment function as well as the data collection function. They inspect properties and look at changes and then determine what those values are. Historically, that had been 2 different contracts, and we're just going to blend them into one. We have a contract proposal to renew with them that really blends those 2 functions, and that is how we've worked for a long time. So we're going to just combine those 2 line items into one. Very modest increase in the 2 over a 5-year contract renewal expected there. And not much else interesting there. I'm going to keep moving. Legal, line 82. That line we moved up a lot in 2020 with one big lawsuit in particular that the town is facing. We have a couple others that we're working at the same time. The pace of those cases and the pace at which we spend is kind of hard to predict, but we're through some of the big one. That's not going to go to trial for another 10 or 11 months as far as we can see right now. But we've taken a guess. We think we can do with less. This used to be a $35,000 line item until 2020. So we're trying to bring it back home to where we want it to be. But and obviously we didn't spend it all where we guessed we would be. So we think that'll be sufficient. Personnel administration. This is all employee benefits starting at line 85. Seeing some pretty good sized changes here. One is on line 86. This is the health and dental insurance for our employees. Premiums went up, I think between 6 and 7% with the 2 plans that we offer. This year in 2020, we started offering a second plan that had a higher deductible and a lower premium to try and reduce this premium cost and share some of the savings with employees. We had a few take advantage of it. We'll go back to this number as we come out of open enrollment this month. So before we finalize this budget, we'll tighten this up a little bit. We have to guess a little bit based on which plans we think our employees are going to pick, or with vacancies, we have to guess which one is a new employee going to be a single person or bring a whole family onto the plan. So we have to do a little guessing there.
Mr. Sterndale, can I? And I asked this question the other day, so if the budget committee, or if I sound like a broken record, is there like an employee wellness plan associated with any of these health insurance plans? Because obviously, if they participate in something like that, it can help to contain premiums, keep premiums down in the future.
Yep, they call it the life. It's got a brand.
It's got some catchy name.
You go through the exercise of with a lot of different medical things. You call ahead of time, and they'll give you a little kickback for going to a lower price provider. Things to try and keep you healthy.
Okay.
There is a. I'm sorry, I can't remember the brand of it, but yes, they're active with that. They communicate directly with our employees quite a bit.
Great.
I think our provider may be the same one that the school uses. This is Health Trust. Our premium increases seem to go in sync, so I think we may be in the same boat as they're slightly different plans, but same provider.
Okay, thank you.
Next page, on lines 92 and 93. These are our police and firefighters are in the New Hampshire retirement system by statute. The rest of our employees are not. So our full-time administrative, everybody that works here in the town hall that are full-time, or public works are not in the retirement system. This is the same retirement, different pocket, but the same system as the teacher. In the middle of next year, there's going to be a substantial increase in the employer contributions that they require. This is a mandatory expense. The legislature tells us that we have to have these employees in these retirement plans, and the retirement plan tells us what we have to pay. So we're seeing big jumps in those. Those get reevaluated every 3 or 4 years, and this is an adjustment year. And you can see in the comments that they're going up considerably. That's pegged to just wages in the police and fire, frontline police and firefighter positions. We will see a jump in 21, and then the second half of the jump in 22 as because it takes effect mid-year for us.
Chris, if I can just throw something in there. Dr. Monica Henson from the SAU had emailed me today to let the committee know that on the school board meeting on Monday at 6:30, somebody from the Hampshire retirement system, an actuarial, which that's really exciting stuff, will be presenting at that school board meeting. Right at the beginning, they've asked them to do it at 6:30. So if you're interested in learning more about why there's this huge increase, they'll be addressing it at that meeting. If you're not able to attend, I did ask Monica to at least have Chris and Nate. She won't be at the meeting next Thursday, but to have them give us a summary at our next meeting as well. So
I think that's the joint SAU meeting.
Yes, you're right.
It's on Monday.
Yeah, if you NHRS has a reasonably good website. You can find your way through the employer contribution piece. It sounds like the actuarial process for the school produced a similar result, apparently.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna keep moving. Anything else on personnel administration?
Yeah, Chris, what's the difference between what we were just talking about and the employer 457 retirement?
457 is available to other full-time employees not in the retirement system. So all those the people that I just listed that aren't in the retirement system are eligible for the 457. the town matches a portion of contributions for those employees as a retirement benefit. We've been over budget on that. We haven't hit the numbers that people just don't contribute at the levels that we would have budgeted for. So I pulled that budget back a little bit because we haven't been spending at that level. So.
So that's like a 401k essentially.
Yeah, right. It's a government equivalent of a 401k. Yeah.
What's the match percentage?
People can contribute up to 3%. They personally can contribute 3%, and then the employer contributes 3%. At least that's the way I understand it.
Yeah, we match. I think we're up to 4. We might be up to 4% on that now. We moved it up a couple of years ago. The employee can contribute as much as they want, up to some 10 or 15% number, but the match only goes to. I think we're at 4%, but I'm going to double check that. I should know it off the top of my head. But
are we able to move employees over to that plan, or are we stuck with them in this one that goes up 15% all of a sudden?
No, they're police and fire are required to be in the retirement system, and frankly, we couldn't hire them if they weren't, because everywhere else they're eligible for it. That is at the tail end of that is a defined benefit plan. That's a pension, as opposed to a 457, which is just a defined contribution where whatever you save and invest is what you get. And I'm no actuarial, but watch that meeting if you want to understand better. But the numbers are ugly on those pension plans for employers.
Yeah, I'll go check it out on Monday, I guess. Find out. What is a premium holiday? It says premium holiday.
So we're in a pool of municipalities for unemployment compensation, and that pool did well enough last year that they saved enough money that they could throw some back to the members in the pool like us, and we just used it to pay the premium. I don't think that's going to happen at that scale again. So we'll have to pay something for unemployment compensation. They're telling us it's going to be around 2,000. So that was a one-off. Let's see, moving on. The next two big sections are planning and zoning, those two land use boards. We haven't heard anything specific from them in terms of additional needs or the budget at all. No big changes expected. The contract planner in line 98 that we've shifted to last year, 2019, is working out really well for the board and the staff. This year has been busy for zoning. That's the kind of thing that just bounces around. You can't predict it, but it's relatively small dollars.
What is the planner? Are they kind of like Avatar? We contract out different tasks like research and stuff.
Yep, they're the planning professional that we don't have on staff. So they research things for the board. They do a lot of the prep work for the board in terms of evaluating applications and guiding them through things like changes in the zoning ordinance. They attend all the meetings, are in contact with our staff. Whenever the days that our staff are working, they're usually in contact with the planner. They work for Stratford Regional Planning. Keep going if you don't have anything else. Down into the 120s. This is all facility maintenance and utilities items in this section. Tom, you had asked us this week what all these abbreviations mean. I'm sorry that isn't so obvious.
Yeah, I was pretty confused by town hall, community center, and town hall other building.
Yeah, you're not wrong to be. I inherited all these and I've learned them, and if I had a better way, I would do it. But just for those of you that haven't been around for 20 years, THOB is town hall and other buildings, so it's spread across multiple facilities typically. CC is community center. Town hall is the old town hall. HS is a historical society. There's two fire stations, FD being the old one and new FS being the new fire station. So, and if I missed any and you need them, let me know. I'm sorry that's not more intuitive. Just call your attention to line 124. We've pulled, that's labeled town hall and other buildings, mowing and shoveling. We've pulled the mowing component out of that and we're moving it to Parks and Rec Department. We're trying to get all those functions and budget functions down there. You'll see that in that line, we also start mowing Marston because we now have grass there. So that's that expense just moved somewhere else.
Is line 122 salary maintenance at the town hall? Is that?
We don't actually have anybody on staff, so that it isn't really a salary thing. It's like whenever I can find a handyman to do stuff around here. If you know anybody that would like some little project work and has some basic mechanical skills, please let me know.
Yeah, I know John had mentioned that in a previous meeting. I'd just like to say there's some items, in and around town hall that, I know we're working to do them, but I think maybe we should allot some more dollars toward that maintenance getting done before they turn into larger expense projects.
Yeah, I would overspend this budget if I had somebody to spend it on, and I would find the money somewhere else. I got plenty to do, and just haven't found anybody that is interested in doing it. So,
okay,
be happy to talk to anybody that's interested. The electricity lines are spread across, I don't know, 10 budget line items. These are an accounting nightmare for us. The way the solar panels bill and credit, we're confident that we're getting what we paid for, but it's just a struggle to get it into this format in a way that makes sense. Overall, if you add them all up, we're going to budget a little bit less because I think we've just been over budgeted. If you look at them in the aggregate, no great changes in the facilities, just trying to get the budget a little sharper.
So why is the CC Electric line 139? That seems like really, really high. Is that the solar shenanigans thing? Like some kind of contract where we buy electricity at a higher than normal rate?
It's what we do. We do buy all the electricity from the panels on the roof. I haven't looked at the default rate for a while. I think it's still less than the default rate, but this building is open a lot. It includes the police station. I'm wondering if this year, if you look at line 149, you'll see a reduction in the heat line there. We just last year replaced the boilers, the old ancient boiler with two newer ones. I am hoping that maybe we see some savings on the electric line as those are more efficient and don't require the whole thing to turn on all the time. I don't know. That may be wishful thinking, but
have we had like people go through the building, like, I don't even know what to call them, energy auditors, but like just to make sure that we have like we're not like using incandescent bulbs, or we have maybe motion sensors and that type of thing?
Yeah, we did before my time, so 7 or 8 years ago, they did do a lighting program that replaced a bunch of things. The lighting is all fluorescent pretty much. We could probably do with the thing is, I don't know how much of the lighting load, the load is lighting, how much that cost is lighting, but it wouldn't kill us to probably do that again.
Yeah, I was just kind of wondering because like it does seem like a lot just for lighting, but I'm racking my brain trying to think what else gets used. I mean, there's probably a refrigerator or two and some computers, but boy, that seems high.
Yeah, well, we have the food pantry, which has got I don't know, half a dozen freezers and refrigerators.
Oh, that'll do it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's probably a chunk of it. And then the blowers off the whole HVAC system. We have air conditioning, and that's electric. So and it's a good sized building. When you count the gym and the police station, along with what you think of as you walk down the hall here. It's a good sized facility. So.
And it's the promise with the solar that at some point we can stop paying them and we keep the panels, and we get it for free, or what?
At some point in 2024, we can buy the panels at a reduced rate, and I think that's 120,000, and then get all the power for free. So the solar arrangement was never really intended to save money, a whole lot of money on day one. It's in year 7 that it really starts to pay off, or year 10 when you get done, purchasing the panels, and then you get 10 years of electricity for free. That's the plan. Anything else on that?
I saw there's a line item here for 154 for dumpster.
Yep.
Are we like renting dumpsters? Is this the cost to take them to the dump, or what? Do we work with the recycling center on that?
No, this is dumpsters for trash generated in this building. They pick it up like any other office building. We have a trash dumpster and a recycling mini dumpster here. So
I think this came up with the school was, if the school could do recycling and trash removal services with whoever we're contracting with the recycling center, that maybe we could get a better rate or something.
Yeah, it's actually, for us, it's the same vendor. And I did talk to the principal at the school. The way the timing of things has worked out, I don't think there's much we can do to help with them this year, but maybe next year we might be able to help them with their dumpster rates. I don't know. This is, we don't really have the capability to, well, I guess we could manufacture the capability to take our trash up to the recycling center and throw it in the compactor there. I don't know that it would be any cheaper paying by the pound up there than it would be to have them come and pick it up. We don't have a truck really that's built for that, and it's a lot of labor. So there's not a lot of savings that we can see getting into the trash business, I guess is the best way to say it.
Okay.
Chris, one question I had about the trash is I noticed, this summer working with the youth association and bringing trash up there, has there been any thought about putting locks on those so that any Tom, Dick, and Harry can't just dump there? Because I noticed like in the recycling bin, there was like a bunch of black bags of trash in there. And
yeah, I've been talking with them about that. We get dinged for non-recyclable stuff being in that dumpster once in a while. You'll probably see those locked up by spring. Yeah, it's a pain in the neck. I would really like to have those in a different location, but I just don't have one. If we could hide those out back somewhere, we wouldn't have to worry about that. But we just don't have a spot. And they're ugly up there next to the beautiful Dame School. Well, line 152, 153, our phone and internet stuff, that's another billing nightmare, trying to figure out all those locations. It's all with the same vendor. Our phone service is coming in over the internet now. We're going to be consolidating those. You've seen us consolidate lines on phone service already. I'm just trying to simplify that for bookkeeping purposes. The Comcast mail is ridiculous that we get. So
when you guys figure out the phone situation, let the school know, because they're billing like $8,000, $9,000 for a few phone lines. And also I noticed that the police department has its own phone line and internet lines in this budget.
Yeah, we have separate service. Their phone stuff is baked into they have a phone line in the budget, but their phone system is integrated with our side of the building. So their phones pass through our internet connection. They need, for security purposes, they need their own static IP for CGIS compliance. So we can't easily combine. We couldn't just get one service for bigger money. They've really found it important to stick with their own. I think it's like $100 a month for the business class internet for them. And the hardware workaround for that was pretty expensive the last time we looked at it. I'm going to keep rolling. Line 157, that's cemeteries. That's mostly mowing for cemeteries. You may see something separate for roads for cemeteries in a later iteration of this. The cemetery trustees have long wanted to do some work on the roads at Southside Cemetery. The select board hasn't really tackled that yet, so we may see something more on that.
Is that always $1,500 or so under budget?
No.
Okay.
It was dry this year. I think that had something to do with it. Keep going.
Yep.
Insurance. Again, we're in pools for the workers' comp and the property and liability insurance. P&L continues to creep up or jump up. I think that's part of a statewide trend as much as anything around our particular claims history. Workers' comp is driven a little bit more by claims history, I think. And I know on the P&L property and liability, not profit and loss. One of the big drivers in that rate setting is how many police officers you have in the formula that they use. And we have increased our headcount of police officers. So I think that's contributed to this creeping up a little bit over the last couple of years.
So it goes up when we have more cops?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Which may be counterintuitive, but
no, more bullets flying.
Yeah, you said it, not me.
Yeah. Is there anything we can do to lower that? Are there, like with your house, you can get an alarm system or fire suppressants? Is there something the town can do to decrease its potential for liability?
Not much. No. The way New Hampshire law works is we have liability caps. Municipalities have very low caps in terms of what we can be held liable for in terms of dollars per claim or event, as long as we are in a liability pool. And this is the liability pool. So we have a vendor to pick from for this if we want to enjoy those liability caps. If you give up the caps, you can go out into the private market. But of course, without a cap, you become a much greater risk. So there isn't much in terms of shopping for that service. And we do things like Primex is the pool and is our insurance carrier. They do things like inspect things for us to try and help us do better, like playgrounds, and they did a walkthrough at the highway shed this year and gave us a list of things to do that we're working our way through. So we do those things as much to try and stay safe as we do to try and reduce the premiums, but obviously learning from their experience. There's not a lot of take part in this program or get an alarm system and your premium will go down by X. They don't the program just doesn't work that way. I'm going to keep rolling through. The police department starts at line 167.
Before we get to that, there was a regional planning association. Is that the Stratford planning thing?
Yeah, that's really there for the planning board. We've used them occasionally for a la carte kinds of things like traffic counts or things that don't come in part of the planning contract. We haven't done additional traffic counts in a couple of years, but that's the kind of thing that we would use them for. That's what that's there for.
So we're getting something for $1,000.
Well, we haven't actually spent it. We've
okay.
Yeah, we're not paying dues members at this point of the commission. They ask us for it every year, and the planning board has not yet recommended it. If you are a member, a dues paying member of the planning commission, you do get some services for free that we don't, but we don't need those services or pay for them on a piecemeal basis. So rather than paying, I don't know, $7 or $8 grand a year in dues, we have some money in our pocket for little project kinds of things. Police, no staffing level changes expected. As John said, they're going to announce a new chief next week, but the head count will remain about the same or identical. We're going to go back and look at that full-time, part-time salary lines as we know what we'll know what the lineup is going to be and what those salaries are going to be as of next week. So it's rare to have just an absolute no change, and we will tweak that a little bit in your second draft. But,
I had two questions. One is what's the overtime stuff?
Overtime is when typically used for when shifts go long because of an event. You're there later than you expected to be, and to a lesser extent to cover vacation and training. When we're fully staffed, which is 7 uniformed officers, it's a lot easier to cover training and vacation time because you have a little bit more depth, and you'll see our actual overtime spend is down from last year quite a bit.
And we're fully staffed with 7 officers now?
Yes,
Okay.
and that's one of the reasons the overtime comes down is a good chunk of this year we've had enough bodies that we haven't had to use overtime. So that's the kind of thing that fluctuates. And there's some event-driven stuff too, weather events and things like that turn into overtime. But,
what is the line 170? I see it's up 3,000.
that's the administrative assistant's position. That's not a uniformed officer, but a civilian, if you would. That reflects the current salary. That $45,000 number is the current salary, which was 42 a year ago. There was a raise during 2020.
What is prosecution services?
So we contract with a prosecutor to take cases to court and handle the prosecution piece of most of our cases. Our officers don't act as their own prosecutors, so we hire that function out.
That's not a county thing?
No, lesser charges. Felony level stuff gets handled by the county. Anything that doesn't settle quickly or get paid as a fine or whatever and ends up going to court, that needs a prosecutor, and that's what that's for.
Oh, so we essentially just have a contract prosecutor.
Correct.
Okay.
That's why it's such a round number, not an hourly basis thing.
Before we get out of there,
Yeah.
well, there was the internet and the phone stuff. We went over that. The DARE program, there was a 0 in there. Are they done with that?
They've switched to something called LEAD. I think this year they just weren't with the pandemic. They weren't able to conduct the program, so there was no expenses. They hope to do it next year, but that's one of those pandemic casualties. Are you looking at 189?
Yep.
Yeah, that's what that is. We didn't have an officer in the school and doing the t-shirts or the pizza party or whatever it is that $1,000 that program actually generates some revenue too, so it's kind of a pass-through line there. You'll see another big unspent number is the very last line in police at 192, the cruiser. We held off on buying this year's cruiser until we knew, first of all, that we could get it amidst the pandemic and that we could afford it. So it's going to be delivered probably this month, if not early next month. So
Does the town just buy one cruiser a year?
Yeah, that has been the pattern that we've been in for 8 or 9 or 10 years. We have a fleet of 4. They last about 4 years, and we were, by replacing one a year, we've kept the maintenance cost down. We don't get much in the way of trade-in value. But with a fleet of 4 and a 4-year lifespan, it works out pretty well.
What is the OS rev after the pistol permit one line up from that?
Offsetting revenue.
Okay.
So that almost always, we don't even budget that money. That where pistol permits are the one thing in state law that the local police department can kind of spend on their own. It's kind of off the budget in a way. So it's a pass-through thing. They use it for gear or whatever. At the end of the year, they have $1,000 to work with. They buy a missing piece of gear or something. Anything else on PD? All right, fire and rescue. Right now we have 2 of our 3 full-time slots filled, and the chief is looking to hire. He's doing interviewing right now for the 3rd slot. He's been working to slowly increase the use of per diem people to expand the number of hours each week that we have station coverage. The actuals this year, and you might have noticed this in police too, but not to not the same extent. The actuals this year are blown up by extra stipends for police and firefighters that were a early gift from the governor for cops and firefighters. They all earned a bunch of extra money working early in the pandemic. So the actuals are kind of a mess. We had to put them somewhere, and that's where they are in the part-time salary line. The stipend line 198, that $40,000 is divided amongst the call force, what you think of as the old volunteer firefighter. In early December, they divvy that pool up based on participation throughout the year and give that to the membership based on who's responding to the calls and doing the training outside of those hours when we have station coverage. No other big changes. On line 216, well, we are going to spend most of that money in 2020. We're going to buy the equipment or buy the materials we need to replace a dry hydrant on what is it, Kennard Road? Yeah, Kennard Road. We didn't actually get a chance to do the work this year, but Public Works is going to do the work, and we're going to buy the materials this year. Nothing else out of the ordinary with fire and rescue. Any questions there? Keep going, take a swig of water here. 3 on 225, that starts the building inspector. We've actually kind of for a while had a very part-time administrative person helping us out with data entry with permitting and filing and stuff like that. We just would like to get that on the budget for about 10 hours a month. Looking at looking what's coming through the planning board, it looks like it could be another busy year. Our building inspector's part-time. He works 26, 28 hours a week, something like that. He's going to have his hands full next year. The pace this year has been pretty strong despite the pandemic. Ideally, building permit fees offset a lot of these costs. We at least in theory, peg the fees to the total cost of doing the inspections. It's pretty close to that. So as these costs creep up with volume, so will building inspection fees. Emergency management is thankfully uneventful. We really budget ones in here just to have the authority to spend money on these things if we ever need it. If we don't have permission to spend money on something from town meeting, we can't. So these are all things that you could dream up coming up as a need in an emergency management context, but thankfully we don't usually need to spend them. Nixle is the one outlier there. Nixle is the emergency notification system you can sign up for. It'll ding your phone or send you an email when something's going on locally. If you haven't signed up for that, it's worth the effort.
Chris, can I go back to building inspector just for 1 second?
Yep.
It looks like line 224 is kind of compressed. Just
Oh yeah,
didn't know
Tim
what was
caught
in
that
there.
too. Yeah, that's a zero lineup. There's a whole lot of lines missing in what you see here because they have zeros in them and have for some time. So it's an extinct line item. It just didn't clean up appropriately. It was probably manually hidden in Excel. So there is no numbers in there. You're not missing anything.
It was full-time salary for a building inspector.
Right, back when we had a full-time building inspector, that salary appeared in a line above that with a different account number. So if you, I noticed, if you go down and look at line 234 jumps to 237. That's just an example. That's all over the place. There are hidden zeroed lines here. As we carry information from our accounting system to Excel, we have to carry a whole bunch of information that we don't need, but we have to put it in Excel so we can use it because our accounting software is so ugly. It's just not built for this kind of discussion. So that's what line 224 and a whole bunch of other missing lines would be.
Yep, that one just stood out because it was basically a really short line.
Right. Yep. Yeah, Tim caught that, and I fixed it in the Excel version. You won't see that next time. Move on to highway, unless anybody has anything else. Let's see. Bigger ticket changes proposed here. We are fully staffed in highway and have been for several months. It's a great place to be. We haven't been there in a long time. The mix of employees versus contractors, we're still, that's the kind of thing that bounces around when we're fully staffed. We don't use as many contractors, particularly for plowing operations. You'll see changes in 256. We've really picked up our mowing operations. You may have even noticed in your neighborhoods this year, we did a lot more roadside mowing. We want to keep that up and stretch out the street sweeping a little bit that we do in the spring. The mowing helps with visibility, most importantly, and also helps keep water off the roads, and it helps get sunshine on the asphalt, which helps it melt faster. So good stuff all around. You may, if you live on, it was Kennard, I think we did a whole lot of canopy work just a couple of weeks ago, trying to get the canopy back from off the road. So we're trying to pick up that work a little bit more.
Chris?
Yep.
Going back to full-time salary and full-time overtime, and then the next two lines. I noticed the overtime for full-time is very low, but yet we're going to budget 20,000 again. If you have all your full-time employees, I would think that the overtime is not really necessary. So why budget 20,000 again?
Because it's mostly because it's weather driven. We don't know. If you look at the year before, we spent 24,000 in overtime. So it's this and the plowing lines are almost all driven by weather, and we can't predict it. I think we've had the budget in the same place for quite a long time, and it bounces around. Sometimes we hit, sometimes we miss.
What about 255? You've already spent 38,000, but yet you're budgeting 6.
Yeah, so that, as we know, we're going to be using fewer seasonal part-time people for plowing this year. So that's the biggest change.
That's mostly plowing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Almost exclusively plowing. I can't think of. Any other part-time stuff? Yeah, no. We had, and for several years, with a smaller full-time staff, we've often had winters with what are essentially seasonal full-time people. They're working close to 40 hours a week, but they aren't permanent benefited employees, and that's how you get a big number like that in the salary part-time line. But we don't have anybody like that. Don't need anybody like that right now. So good. Another big change on 259. We're coming up in our equipment fleet. We are coming up on a whole lot of replacements that are lining up as vehicles age out of their useful lives. This year, we're going to propose, at least the department has proposed, the select board hasn't finalized on it yet, replacing a dump truck. Our loader is 13 years old, and our road grader is 15 years old, I believe. The loader and the grader are both getting old, getting long in the tooth. Replacing the grader is about $250,000 enterprise. And what the Public Works Director wants to do is try out contracting the grading of our town gravel roads. We have a contractor lined up that over the life of a grader, if it works out for us, will save a considerable amount of money rather than owning the piece of equipment. We're not at the point this year where we have to replace the grader, but it's coming within the next couple of years. If it's not in 21, it's probably in 22. So we'd like to try out the contracting method and see if it works from a maintenance and safety point of view and a scheduling point of view. Because over the long run, it would save us a lot of money from owning and maintaining a grader that we don't use every week. It has to live outside. It's a huge ticket item. It's the biggest, most expensive piece of equipment in the highway fleet by far. So we're gonna try that out this year, and hopefully, if it works out well, we can avoid spending $330,000 on a grader in 2 years.
Now, is that something that's already been budgeted in the capital improvement, and will that money come back into the budget? How will that work?
It's the replacement of the grader is in the capital improvement plan, but we don't actually budget money for the capital improvement plan. So it's not found money. It's just an expense that we won't have to incur.
Okay.
It's the kind of thing that we would either take out of a capital reserve fund or lease. So it will be either taking it out of the bank or leasing it for. It's probably I think we were thinking about a $60,000 lease payment, maybe a $50,000 lease payment over 6 years or something like that.
So it's not something that comes out every town meeting that like the police cruiser or something like that.
Right. There's not a minus somewhere else that covers that 25,000. It's an expense that we're avoiding in the future.
Okay.
Is that clear? That make sense?
Yes. Yes, I get it.
Okay.
Chris, is there a master schedule on when these roads get graded? Like, is it, like Ledge Farm Road? To me, that's one of the major roads in town that are well traveled. And it seems like 2 weeks after it gets graded, it's pretty rough again. I don't know how you schedule the roads, or, whether it's.
You can't really schedule grading. It's really condition driven. And that's one of the things we'll have to work out with the contractor. And the thing that we have to test, this is a contractor that's going to be grading other roads in other towns and other projects and things. When our roads get bad, it's the same time that other towns' roads are getting bad. Usually it's, post storm or after, a long dry spell. You can't really grade a really dry road. You need it to be a little bit damp. So one of the things we have to test is, can we get it when we need it? And does it work in that way? But it's not the kind of thing that you schedule weeks in advance. It's more condition driven. So you know you're going to be doing it coming out of mud season. You know you're going to be doing it coming into winter. But other than that, my best understanding of it is it's really driven by conditions, and when you have the time and manpower to do it. I'd have to defer to Sean to give you any better than that, but it isn't a hard scheduled thing.
So for this, is it suggesting this line item carry like an ad hoc price, or did we get a price per hour or something from a contractor, or how was it?
Yeah, we have the contractor ready to go. We know we pegged the number of hours that we spent grading last year. Sean kept track of that. So he has a sense of how long it takes to do all the roads, how many times you want to do the roads, how many hours that turned into. So it's a pretty hard number. On an hourly basis, we know what it's going to cost. Again, that actually is a little bit weather driven, so it may vary from that a little bit, but the contractor is lined up and ready to go.
And so just they'd be mobilizing every time they're called, or would this piece of equipment live at the town shed or something?
No, it's native to town. This particular contractor is in town, and the equipment typically, I believe that it's housed here typically. Obviously, it's a big piece of equipment, it moves around, but it's on call for us. I would imagine that there's a little bit of lead time required for the contractor, and Sean will anticipate when we know the need is coming, or work that out as long in advance as possible. But it's on call.
And storage is not our responsibility.
Correct.
Yeah.
Now we don't store our current grader doesn't live in the highway shed. It's too big, or the garage is too small. So that's probably one of the things that contributes to the expense of owning it, is that it lives outside. We'll see how it goes. Hopefully we can avoid buying a grader. It'd be a great outcome for us.
No, it sounds like a good plan. Is that equation going to get thrown out of whack if we end up having to be responsible for a bunch of private roads?
Yes, probably.
Well, let's hope that doesn't happen.
And I'm going to keep rolling through highway. What else is out of the ordinary here?
There's internet and telephone stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Telephone. That's another. I think we've been allocating our actuals incorrectly. We're adding internet service at the highway garage, telephone, and what we're adding it at the recycling center as well. That shows up differently here. The telephone is if you look at last year's actual, I think we screwed up our budgeting somehow with this line item. So that's the best I can do for you at this point.
I gotta ask, is there a reason that there's phone and internet needed at the highway shop and the recycling center?
Yeah, the shed needs a phone to talk with the vendors. You need to be able to call the shop and talk to somebody about a delivery or what have you. The internet is we're ordering parts through it, and really the push to do it right now is time and attendance system. As part of our payroll service, we are going to switch to what is essentially an internet time clock. For punching in and punching out. We use handwritten paper timesheets right now. So we really need internet in every location. So that's what's really pushing for that now. Same thing with the recycling center.
So there's actual offices in there.
There's no, it's not there's a desk with a computer on it.
It's not like just a garage then.
It's a garage. It's a garage with a desk in it.
But there's desks, all right.
No, there's a desk. Come by anytime. It's not that impressive. There is a desk with a phone and we'll put a cheap, dirty old computer on it. And it's right next to the door. It has no walls around it. It's a desk in a garage, not a garage with an office. The only office in the highway shed that has a toilet in it.
Can you explain line 270, how that actually works? Because the numbers don't make any sense.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what PW stood for on there.
Public Works. Yeah, we use engineers for a whole bunch of different things. Oftentimes those costs are stuck into like a road project, like the ledge farm work. The cost of engineering ledge farm was in there. This year's actual is mostly work done at the gravel pit to do a survey and analysis of the material that's left at the gravel pit. And I think there's also some costs for engineering for the bridge or culvert on Kelsey Road. In this year's actuals, that's a project that's ongoing for us. We have in that case, it's kind of the preliminary engineering to get into the grant pipeline engineering. And we just 2 weeks ago found a problem out on the culverts on Berry Road. That's probably going to need some simple engineering help. And we've got to get started engineering the bridge on Cooper Hill Road. Is going to need something within the next few years. So these early stage engineering things where we don't have big money appropriated for projects, we'll use an engineer to do the preliminary stuff. The outlier this year is the study at the gravel pit. That money was actually encumbered last year. So I think by the time we clean up the books for this year, that number is going to shrink quite a bit. It's in 2020, but it should be in 2019. You're going to hear more about the gravel pit as time goes by. We're going to spend 2021 evaluating what we are spending to mine sand out of it versus what we might earn by selling the sand out of it. It's not material that we can really use cheaply and efficiently. So you'll hear about that over the next couple of years. We're going to be putting a lot of thought into that. Sorry, a little tangent there, but we just talked about that with the select board last week. Is that enough on highway? Keep going. 275 is the big typically asphalt road maintenance projects. We scaled back on that quite a bit this year, having walked away from the ledge farm project. We are going to encumber some more on the actual line here. We're going to spend. We've already committed to spend another 100 and something on some asphalt work for the roads we did this year. So the actual number here is still lower than reality.
Are we no longer going to finish ledge farm?
We don't know how to pay for it. We've got it pretty well engineered now, but the cost was such that the select board said we can't afford that in any one year. We tried putting it up for a bond a few years ago. We got the engineering to the point where we hoped maybe something comes out of one of these stimulus programs that we can grab some shovel-ready project money. It still needs to be done, but we don't know how to pay for it.
I thought that 300,000, part of that was for Ledge Farm Road, and didn't you have a bond last year that did pass for Ledge Farm?
In 2019, it wasn't a bond, it was an appropriation.
Right.
It was in a warrant article.
Yep. Yep.
We, in 2019, we did have a vote and a warrant article for that. And that's the money we used to do the section that's now paved. So that work just finished. It really finished up this past spring 2020, the curve and the part before Poor Farm Road. As we, in 2020, you were on the budget committee this past spring. We had talked throughout the whole budget process about continuing work on Ledge Farm, and we had planned on spending this 300,000 in the operating budget and an additional 300,000 with another warrant article on Ledge Farm, and that's what the budget committee approved and sent to the town meeting. Between when the budget committee did that and when town meeting actually happened in June or July, I don't even remember, we got the full price, the actual price, which was much more than the 600,000 that we were planning on. And we ran into the need from the selectmen's point of view to find ways to save money because of the pandemic and ease the tax burden in 2020. So we basically, the select board walked into town meeting and said, we're going to ask you to not raise that 300,000 and not tax it and not spend it. It still needs to be done. We're ready to do it, but we haven't figured out how to fit it into the overall plan at 800,000.
Yeah. Wasn't the total cost, Chris, remind me, to finish Ledge Farm from where we stopped to all get Epping was like $1 million.
Yeah, I think it's between 900 and $1 million. Yeah.
I'm surprised by that because the worst part of the road was the part that you just did.
Yeah,
the rest of the road is a kind of a straight shot, you know?
Well, they got to rip it all apart, bring it all the way down, take all that sand and gravel off, redo the whole bed of the road before they go over. They can't just pave over it. They're going to tear the whole thing apart and redo it. So it was $1 million. It was like $1 million. And I know it's a popular road to drive on, but in my opinion, that's a lot of money.
Set up a toll booth.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not a popular road. It's just the most well-used dirt road in town, probably.
Right. I mean, for residential purposes, there's barely anybody even lives on it. It's really just a commuting road.
Right, right. What if you were to break the rest of that road in half, say to Poor Farm, and do that section up to where you completed, and then finish it another year? You know, break it up into halves.
Yeah, that's what we might have to do. That just makes it even more expensive.
It does.
Yeah. You know, when you mobilize twice and it's probably 20%, maybe, I don't know, 15-20% more to break it in half like that. And time obviously doesn't work in your favor either because things get more expensive. So it's still a priority for us, but it's so expensive that and it's not, and I guess John's probably more eloquent at saying this because I know he said it in meetings, but there are other ways you can get to the places that Ledge Farm takes you. You know, it's not an essential artery road. Yes, it's popular, but you know, we've lived it out for a long time.
Yeah, well, that's another debate, I guess. The town has changed a lot in the last, 30 years or whatever, and 152 is not the most viable way to get to where you want to go. Not with the traffic.
Yeah.
So,
Epping has changed a lot in 30 years too, and that's what's driving the traffic on Ledge Farm.
Yep.
I think.
You're right.
Epping used to be a McDonald's and a Cumberland Farms. John, did you want to use better language than I did, or? add on that?
As the select board goes over ways to expend the town's money for use for people in town and stuff like this, I find it very tough for a road like that to drop $1 million on when there's so many other projects in town that could be necessary for better public fund spending. Drive slow. Yeah, it's going to get bumpy and dirty and muddy on the winter time, springtime. If you drive it today, it's not that bad. You know, so 75% of the year, it's pretty nice and rural, and it adds to our character. That's how I look at it. But to spend $1 million for 25% of the year because of the bad times, I find a hard time spending that money that way.
And it's important that there are so many other ways to get where you want to go.
Yeah, so it might take you 5 minutes
It's
longer.
not critical.
Exactly. I mean, but we know Berry Road's no better, and that brings you to Epping too. But again, another subject.
Like I said, John's more eloquent.
Yeah.
So anyway, we're gonna be doing more. We're gonna be catching up on our overlay for our asphalt roads this year. So that's what this and probably another warrant article will be used for, to go back to maintaining the asphalt roads that we have, that we've kind of put aside during this ledge farm pandemic stretch of a couple of years. That's where we're headed for 21. Anything else highway wise? All right. On to solid waste and recycling. This is one of the places where the pandemic's really tweaked our operations and cost us money. The volumes that we're seeing at the recycling center are up. They've always crept up. They've really moved up noticeably this year. I think our final, our MSW, the compacted household trash, that volume might jump 10% for the year by the time we're all said and done. Our contracted disposal rates go up every year by 3.5%. It's getting more expensive to haul all the materials. Trucking companies are getting more per trip, and the options available to us aren't great. All those things combined with changes that we've had to do in how we're handling some of the materials, we end up spending more to get rid of them. So our costs are way up this year relative to the pace that we've been on. They've been going up very steadily, but this year's increase is bigger than normal. Admittedly, line 280 is a bit of a guess. We don't know, when and how operations can return to something more like pre-pandemic levels. We're seeing the volumes, and then we do things like mix cardboard and paper, and that ends up costing us money. We don't anticipate doing that forever, but that's what's driving all these costs.
Does it cost us money, or does it we just don't get as much money when we sell it?
Yeah. You end up. It still gets recycled, but you don't make money selling the product. Yeah. So it's and you pay more to haul it. It's the hauling is less efficient, so you're making more hauls.
But it still brings in some revenue versus paying to throw it out.
Paper and mixed paper at this point is essentially a wash. You're not paying to put it in the landfill. That's always been the best benefit of recycling is not that you get to sell the materials, it's that you don't have to pay to throw it in the landfill at $78 a ton. It still makes sense to do it because of that savings. The sale of the materials, with the exception of plastics and aluminum and metal cans, revenues, there isn't much in the way of revenue for recycling, but just keeping out of the landfill is worth the effort.
Yeah, I had talked to John earlier in one of our other meetings about this, and I was wondering if there weren't ways to cut down on the amount of man hours needed to sort the trash. If there's maybe more of a self-serve, because I know at least the last time I had done it, for instance, the plastic bottles, you would put them in like a plastic bag, like a 50-gallon plastic bag, and then someone would come and, tie the bag up and police that there weren't any bottle caps in there, and then they take the bag, I don't know where, and they do whatever with it. Versus where I lived prior, we just had a gigantic, not a dumpster, more or less like the back of a semi truck, and it was just open, and you would just throw, number 2 plastic into this one and number 1 plastic into that one, and there were no attendants at all ever. I mean, I'm sure someone comes by once a day to check that things aren't full and to call a truck, but somehow they managed to make recycling work without on-staff attendance and everything. And so I wonder, with how much is being spent, there's like about $80,000 plus, uniforms and all this stuff, with how much is being spent on people working there, how many hours are being spent on different materials versus how much we actually get out of doing that. For instance, like with cardboard, we get a better price if the cardboard is all, perfectly clean cardboard, if it's all folded up and baled correctly, versus if we had a big dumpster with a slot in it and you could just push your cardboard in there, people would, throw the wrong kind of cardboard, a dirty pizza box, some magazines, so we'd get a lot less money for it. But if we don't have to pay someone to, cut up the cardboard boxes and make sure they're, broken down and put them in the baler and bale them and go stack them wherever they do it. If we could just call a hauling company and say, hey, the cardboard dumpster is full, come get it. If that's something where we don't make as much money selling it, but we don't have to pay someone to spend hours policing it. And it makes it easier for the residents too, if you don't have to, sort everything as much. So I don't know if that's something you guys have looked at. I heard something about there was a report or not, but that's something I see as a way to increase efficiency there.
Yeah, there are. Am I interrupting somebody? No. There are some of those materials are pretty labor intensive. The plastics you have to touch a few times between the process of bagging and storing and baling and storing again and all that. Plastics happen to be generally, when the market's good, when you have good, clean product, well sorted, baled, you get decent money for it. If you just throw it in a roll-off dumpster, you may not have to pay to get rid of it. I don't know, but you certainly don't sell it. All you're doing is just avoiding cost of disposal. But your revenues are considerably less when you don't have, good, clean products. Same with cardboard. Those are the trade-off. Maybe we could, if we really pulled it back, maybe we'd save half of that payroll and lose a comparable amount of revenue. I don't know. It would take a little more digging to figure that stuff out.
If you do have any reports on it, if you send one over my way, I'd be happy to look over it.
Yeah, I can certainly show you what our what the weights and the revenues and all the various things are. I can certainly share that with you. I couldn't put numbers on the labor side of it, or the facility cost that you bear as a result of having balers and
Yeah, that's the other thing is that's, requiring people to be in the building and the building to be heated and all that stuff versus having just a bunch of roll-off dumpsters or something in a kind of a self-service thing.
Yeah, we did the pandemic did force us to find ways to have a little bit more self-service than we used to, like cans. We fit that trailer in a place that it hadn't been before, and we aren't crushing them, so we're driving to drop them off a little bit more often. But the facility space is challenging. You know, you don't, the layout, we can't add any more roll-off dumpsters, given the layout of the space. But I'm happy to send you the real nitty-gritty data if you want to see it.
All right. Well, with that, I think we can probably move on from recycling.
Let's see, animal control, general.
Sorry, I couldn't get off
assistance,
mute fast enough.
welfare. Well, somebody, Jim, you
Yeah,
got,
sorry. I had a question about line 282, the equipment maintenance. I was just curious there. That was about 3 times what was budgeted. Is that?
yeah, we had to do a bunch of repairs on the Bobcat this year. The arm, some of the hydraulics got mangled or something. The arm was wearing out on the Bobcat.
Okay.
That's what caused this year's.
Are we in a similar situation with that piece of machinery that it's on some timetable to be replaced? And if so, does it fall under the same sort of program as the other town equipment?
It's in the capital improvement plan. We have a forklift there and a Bobcat. I don't think either of them are due anytime soon. I think Sean has identified, he may be thinking about parking something differently up there in the long run. He's thinking about vehicles across highway and recycling together. So in the long run, that may, our fleet mix might change if we can, do with one less piece somehow. He's been thinking about that, but I'm not sure where he ended up.
Or maybe the loader, might be put out to pasture at the dump for use around there or something like that when it's time.
Yeah, that or an old pickup truck, could end up there, depending on what we can get for that stuff. But Sean's been thinking about those things in more detail than I have. I'll have to get him to answer that better.
Thank you.
General assistance, that's municipal welfare. Believe it or not, it's been quiet this year. We've really had, I think, 2 clients that are responsible for most of those costs. You would have thought with the economic damage done this year that we would have had more people looking for assistance, but fortunately haven't needed it. So couple expensive cases, but not a big rush like we might have expected.
What's the animal control thing? Do we have a person or is that just like hours for somebody?
Yeah, we actually have 2 people. They're on call basis. Yeah, they're dispatched by Stratford County, and there are 2 people that can get called on for that. Starting at 309, these are social service agencies that we grant money to each year. This is one piece I haven't finished up yet. We're pretty stable in how we support these. Little changes here or there, some come and go, but generally these are agencies support the people that would otherwise need general assistance in the section above. We get requests from them, and I discuss with the welfare administrator, police department, anybody else that interacts with these agencies to make sure that we're serving some Nottingham clients, or they're responsive when we need things, or they tell us up front how many people they're serving with something like a Meals on Wheels in town.
So these are all people that have a relationship or with the town, or they're doing stuff in the town. This is not just like random donations.
Yeah, it's everybody that we are supporting is doing something for somebody in Nottingham. Yes, these are not just generic, everybody that asks gets something kind of thing. It's not like that. We're trying to make sure that we're using these for people that are getting services, or that the welfare administrator, can, maybe not in every year, but regularly is calling on or referring people to these agencies for something.
I can speak a little bit to Ready Rides because I'm on the board for Ready Rides, and Ready Rides has drivers that live in Nottingham, and they are volunteer people. We provide rides to anyone who has medical need. It's primarily for elderly people that are over 55 or disabled, but disability, I first became involved with them when I was having my eyes dilated, and therefore I was disabled and couldn't drive home. And the friend who usually took me wasn't able to, and I was referred to Ready Rides, and I was absolutely amazed. They were able to come within 24 hours and got me to and from Concord. And so that is what they do for our people and for other people.
Okay. Anything else on social service agencies? All right, recreation. Tough year in 2020 for recreation. Try as they might, there just weren't a lot of things they could pull off. Our whole after-school program and the summer camp program, all mangled by the pandemic. They're hoping that 2021 can look a lot like 2019 programmatically. Significant changes or changes period in the first line, 327. We have long posted lifeguards at the town beach, typically Monday through Friday. We've never really been able to staff it on the weekends. The biggest motivator for that has been the fact that our summer day camp kids are going to the beach many days every week. And if we're bringing kids to the beach, we want to make sure that they have a lifeguard at the beach. This year, with no summer day camp program and not anybody to hire to be a lifeguard, we spent this year without lifeguards at the beach. It's been a very challenging position to hire for many years. In fact, the state park doesn't have lifeguards most of the time, as scary as that might be. And it went really fine. We had a couple of minor incidents, but not having staff at the beach all week didn't really cause that much in the way of problems. So what we're going to try this year is leaving the beach as a swim at your own risk, all season, instead of just the days we can happen to have somebody there. If we need lifeguards for the summer camp program, they'll be part of the summer camp staff. So they'll be off that budget. They'll travel there with the kids that go to the beach and won't be stationed there all day, Monday through Friday. So that's going to save some money. We'll try it out. We'll see if it works. We've had swim at your own risk without lifeguards on the weekends for many years, and people seem to take care of things okay. So we're going to try that out. And whenever we have summer camp kids there, there'll be a lifeguard, so we'll be safe. What would be line 332? This is a new account, new line item that I mentioned way back an hour or so ago, bringing the mowing and field maintenance stuff down here into the Parks Department. This is a combination of, I think, $6,000 from the mowing line up above, and then additional funds for mowing Marston, which we think is probably about a $3,000 a year, maybe a little less than that exercise. And then some money to work on the beach itself, cut back some brush, turn the sand, perhaps add some sand. It's been a long time since we've tuned up the town beach, and it keeps getting smaller and greener and less like a beach every year. So we're gonna try and tune that up this spring and make it a little more roomy and pleasant. And that line item will continue in the future, but probably not at quite that level. I'm gonna keep going. Library, with the reduction in hours, their payroll spend is way under what they expected. They're hoping to be back to normal for 21. No big changes there. And historical, we always put some money there. A town meeting voted that in a few years ago, and because they wanted that there. I think they're actually going to use it this year. We do things, for the Dame School or what have you with that typically. CC is the Conservation Commission. You see them tweaking line items a little bit here and there. And then DS is debt service. The last section, all of our remaining bonds are fixed principal and declining interest arrangements. So our interest goes down a little bit every year. The next one of these to expire isn't for another few years. So we're looking at these same principal items for another few years.
Are these loans that can be refinanced like a mortgage with the low rates that are out there right now?
I think not. I think I have looked at that before, but I'm gonna check that again. They're not bonds. They're bank loans, and they may be restricted against refinancing.
Can the town borrow money through a separate thing to pay these off?
It's not that they can't be refinanced; it's that they can't be prepaid.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to double check that.
Because I noticed the interest rates on these were like 4.5% or so.
Yeah, and the latest bond bank issue was, I think, between 2 and 3. So there's there could be some interest savings there. The rub is, do you, just like any refinancing, do the fees and everything, does it make sense with the life left on them? The two big ones, the Mulligan and the fire station, I think we have 7 years left on.
Yeah, Mulligan's got like 400,000 left on it, I think.
Yeah. So it's a little more, well, yeah, maybe it's 7 years. I think it's around 2028 maybe. And after, how long have I been talking? An hour and a half? Brings us to the total of just over 4.2 million, or 2% over last year. The board has not finished with other warrant articles that will have appropriations. I think that process will generate a few more appropriation warrant articles. Nothing really unusual or different in dollar value that will scare you, but the board's not there yet. So, John, I don't know if you want to add on anything else at the end there, but.
So, Chris, I want to thank you for your work and what you've done. And I was hoping to see it a little less, but for some of these expenditures that are on here that we can't control, it is what it is.
Yeah, I'll say, I mean, for all the challenges you guys had, like with the retirement things going up 15%, you did a good job. I mean, this came in at 2%, which is the inflation rate. So I'm pretty happy to see that. I mean, it would be great if we could get this down to 0 and give taxpayers, no tax hike. But thankfully, you guys are presenting your budget after the school, and they came in with 7.6 or something like that. So it's an easy act to follow. The other thing, 2 other notes on here. The library, their cost for telephone was like, it looks like this year they spent $660. So I don't know, whoever the library is using for telephone, the school and the town and stuff, because that's the lowest from all the other budgets that are paying for phone service. So I don't know how they managed to do it. And then way back up at the very beginning, I had missed my notes here. There's a line 6 for printing. There's about $4,000 for the town report. Do we generally give out all the copies of the town report, or are there a lot left over?
We're going to pull. We did. we're cutting back the printing this year. The price goes up a little bit every year, and we're pulling back the quantity by 50. I don't know if it's 600 to 550 that we did this year. Kelly just asked me, and we pulled back the quantity a little bit because we often have a couple cases of them left, a case of 25 or whatever it is. So we are printing fewer because there are fewer and fewer people that want the book.
And those are generally given out at town meeting, right?
They're available before town meeting, and we put them, here at this building, at the library, at the post office, at Liars. We try to get them out, and then they are available at town meeting.
And most people actually who want them pick them up in those places. That the leftover ones that you get are almost the ones that are left over at town meeting, because people who are interested enough to come to town meeting have been interested enough to pick up their books.
Yes, they've read it before town meeting in many cases.
And they've read it before town meeting, and they've got their questions all marked up and ready to go.
And then there's $7,000 for the newsletter. How much of that is advertising supported or otherwise covered?
I don't know off the top of my head. It's not 7,000. We do have a revenue line for that, though. I'll pull it out for you.
I wonder if that's something we could just do digitally.
That's a third rail that I'm not going to reach.
Fair enough.
You can call me third rail Sterndale, but not on that one.
Sure.
Yeah, and to your broader point, our assessed values have been, and our tax base have been growing at 1% ish a year with new construction and development. So you can use that to offset, and our motor vehicle registration revenue has been going up consistently too. So we have other warrant articles that will drive the tax rate too, but
well, the tax rate will look pretty good with the reevaluation coming out. I mean, the bill's going to be more, but the tax rate's going to look good.
The bill doesn't change. Yeah.
Everybody just has a house that's worth more money than it was 5 years ago. If you thought if it was your 401k, you'd be ecstatic. You'd be like, sweet, look how much it went up in 5 years.
The tax rate went down and my taxes went up by 500.
Yeah, so I think our next, Tim, our next visit on the town business is department heads in January, I believe. I can bring them all, but if you don't feel like you need some of them, I'd not want to drag them in there for nothing. So if at some point between now and then you could just let us know who you want to see, who you want to get down in the weeds with, or have conversations with about anything in the budget, it would be helpful for us to know that ahead of time.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that meeting's on Thursday, January 7th with the department heads.
Yep.
And yeah, we can come up with a list of department heads probably between the next two meetings.
Yeah, whenever it's, and of course they're all happy to come. But just if you don't need them, same with, and the library director too. She, I don't know if you've had FaceTime with her yet, or any of the other department folks. We'll have a new police chief. You'll probably want to speak to that person.
And so, Chris, at that meeting, would you be with the department heads then presenting a second draft of this budget? And I know we had a couple of small questions on the default budget that was presented by John a couple weeks ago in regards to utilities. There was no increase in the default budget for utilities. Should that have been in there?
No, my understanding of the default budget is that it's the dollar amount, not the units. So if you use the same number of kilowatts and a kilowatt costs more, that doesn't matter in the default budget sense. That it's the dollars. Just like anything, any of the commodities or anything. It's dollar amounts that matter. Unless it's a contractual obligation, you can't increase the default budget to reflect that. And quite honestly, I could probably find some contractual obligation in the like something like our solid waste disposal, and increase the the default budget by a few $100 here or there. If you really want to put a lot of energy into it, but where it's such a small variance from year to year, just didn't think like it just didn't feel like it was worth the minutia on it. We have very little in the way of contracted costs that carry from year to year. Like labor contracts, we really don't have much in the way of that. So where the defaults, can move a few $100, it just doesn't matter.
Okay.
Chris, I think one place where it's going to become apparent is software licenses. If your software licenses go up and you haven't budgeted for that increase, and we pass the default budget instead of the operating budget, you're going to have to scrape together something, because the software doesn't just run part-time when you pay part amount. It's
that's the nature of the default budget. There's generally inflation across everything, and the default budget is not intended to keep up with inflation. That's not how they wrote the law. They wrote the law to say that the dollars remain the same, and if you don't have a contracted obligation to buy something or pay somebody, you can't pad the default budget for that. That's not how the law works. So that is going to be the forever challenge for us, is the race of inflation against the default budget. That's the nature of SB2.
Yep.
So then, thank you, Chris. And then you'll also be bringing the revenues to that meeting on the 7th?
Yes, I can do that. Yeah, and I guess your question, Tim, was, yes, I will be there with the department heads, and we'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. This becomes your budget. I don't think I would anticipate a line-by-line kind of review as much as this is what's changed since the last time we talked. If that's okay with you.
Yeah, I think if we're able to, as a committee, if we're able to get similar to how you got this one to us at least a couple days before the meeting, it gives committee members an opportunity to review everything and have questions ready at the meeting.
Yep.
Does anybody else have any more questions for Chris?
I just want to compliment you on the job you guys do.
I
was just
couldn't hear
gonna
you, Tom, but I think that started with compliment, so I'll take it. Thank you.
I said compliment.
Okay, good.
You didn't hear that?
No, you didn't come through, Tom.
Was it complimentary or was it compliment? I don't know which.
I want to compliment you and your department heads.
Yeah, this is the department heads doing the heavy lifting on this. They're the ones watching the nickels. But thank you.
I was going to suggest having the rec revolving funds report or something to show the status of that fund as well when the rec department comes.
Sure.
All right, if there's no other questions for Chris, we can move on in the agenda.
All right, John, if you need anything else from me, I'll stick around. Otherwise, good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
So much.
Well,
Thanks, Chris.
So Carol, do you want to move into any school updates?
Yeah, I'll just update. We had the public hearing for the planning committee recommending withdrawal from the SAU this morning with the State Board of Education, and it went really well. They actually didn't have any questions for us. which is nice. And so we can go ahead with putting that onto a warrant article to recommend withdrawal. And there's a special school board meeting tomorrow to go over the budget, both the proposed and default budgets again, to make sure that they're corrected and tightened up as much as possible. And then there's a joint SAU meeting on Monday, and then a regular school board meeting on Wednesday next week. And then we'll be back to this committee Thursday next week. So we'll have all the updated budgets next week. I think that's it.
Thank you, Carol. And on to committee reports. Facilities Committee. Michael.
I can speak to that. The Facilities Committee met this afternoon to review an alternate design concept and discuss how changes from the original plan would still satisfy most of the needs. Basically, the alternative plan retains the kindergarten preschool classroom addition behind the library, but it omits both of the two-story structures that would be at either end of the two-story existing part of the school. And in replacing what would have been in those two-story additions, the alternate plan has a one-story music room at the back, the east end of the gym. And so it would accommodate the music program there rather than in that front of the two-story structure, lower floor, as was originally planned. And that new location successfully mitigates any sound disruption to classrooms nearby because it'll be across hallways and adjacent to the gym where it isn't an issue. The world language classroom would be where the original design had the new room designated for enrichment. That's a kind of, if you look at the floor plan, it's the place that is back behind the restrooms that are across the hall from the gym. So if you walk further down that hall, when you get to the doorway, instead of going through the doorway to outside, you'd be going into a corridor, and to the left of that would be a new classroom. And that's where the enrichment program that's where the enrichment program was originally supposed to be, but they had to move the world language program into as a full-size classroom area. So that's where that would go. We're anticipating the comparative cost between the original and alternate concepts, and we can weigh the trade-off of dollars against the less additional space. And hopefully we'll have those comparable cost estimates from the construction manager for the next facility meeting on the 22nd. And the facility committee is planning to come before the budget committee at our December 29 meeting. And we anticipate both the architect and construction manager will be available for that meeting as well. Sandra, did I miss anything?
No, you didn't. And I'm a part of the facilities communication meeting, and that followed the regular meeting. And we again spent the majority of the meeting really going over and fine tuning and setting up the internet space sheet that will be posted. It will have both the proposed design and the deficiencies pages there with clearly with diagrams of the school color coded. Hopefully people will be able to shift back and forth. We will have links to town sites and Facebook and ways of really promoting this so that people will understand what's happening and they will be able to come to the deliberative session or if they don't do that, go and vote and have some real idea of what's happening. So part of what we talked about also was how we do promote this website so people know it's there and they can go to it. And a number of ideas were considered, including having someone that's going to be printed posters, not posters, but brochures, and possibly somebody going to the recycle center on the days when that's open, because traditionally that has been a place where people do talk and do get information across. Someone also mentioned that town signs talking about proposals to pass it would be something. And again, we would be looking for community members to be going forward with that, finding ways to fund that, because the committee that's working on it can't be doing that, promoting it being sold as well. So that's what we're looking at and seeing what community members are out there and want to do that. So that's where we are.
Thank you very much. Transportation, Carol and Tom, do you have you had a transportation meeting yet?
I'm trying to schedule one for Monday, but I did go back and forth with Dale Transportation to get some more information about their proposed rate increase. So we'll talk about that hopefully Monday. If we can get it posted, we have to post it for public meeting.
Thank you.
Oh, and Carol, I don't know if you were here at the meeting. I think it was December 1st, but the topic came up that the special education transportation cost has increased, I don't know, 80%. It's a lot. It's like $250,000 or something like that. The topic came up that parents that have special needs students can qualify. They can get a mileage reimbursement if they would rather take care of their own child's transportation to the school or whatever alternative school is there. And it sounds like that is a huge money saver for the town if that type of thing can be arranged. And it sounded like people at the school were not, that there were parents that do not know this is an option. So if at your meeting, when you have it, it would be nice if you could discuss a way to just notify all parents that that is an option, and that way they can spend more time with their child if that's something that they have, if they have time during their day that they could do the driving, and that would save the town a lot of money as well. So if that's something you could bring up at that meeting, that would be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and Nate, who does those who makes those arrangements, will be at the meeting next Thursday, to present the budget too.
Thank you, Carol.
Yep.
And then CIP, Michelle, I'm assuming you haven't had a CIP meeting.
Nope.
And I think from the last selectmen's meeting, I think they did talk about scheduling one soon, right, John?
The CIP meeting?
Yeah.
I'm not part of that board, so I don't know.
Okay. Well, if anyone says anything at the Board of Selectmen, just let them know that I'm the one on the budget committee that handles that.
I believe Donna Danis is the CIP rep for this year.
Okay.
And then John Decker.
Well, Carol stole my thunder.
Sorry about that.
So yeah, no problem. But before that, we did have the hearing since we last talked, which was like 2 weeks ago, I think. So, and that was in preparation, to go to the state board. So, but yeah, it all went well, and we're ready to move it to the warrant.
So one question though I have on that whole thing is, where are you going to house the SAU?
So we've had conversation with the select board about that.
Right, but we haven't given any definitive answer of what was before you. And so presently, if this goes in front of the town and we go all there, and that vote's going to come in March or whatever it is, we better get thinking on this right here.
I thought the proposal was to put it in the town hall, to take up a space in the town hall and then something in the school. No?
the report that we put together had two alternatives. One is using the community room that's not currently utilized except for storage. And so we built that into our draft budget of what we think it would cost, but the alternative is there's space at Fernald Lumber that is substantially cheaper to rent than what the SAU is currently paying for rental space.
You mean the house?
And that's pretty much move-in ready. So it is a annual cost, but it doesn't have as high of a renovation cost.
Are you talking about the house? Fernald Lumber?
It's one of the
The
first
office.
buildings when you go in, it's office space. Yeah.
Right, the house. That would be.
I haven't been there, so I don't know.
Hey, right when you come in, there's a log cabin kind of house.
Yeah.
that They used to run the whole business out of. It's got the front desk area. They got office space out back, office space upstairs. That would be an ideal. I didn't even think that was, I didn't know if they were renting that.
Yeah, it's available right now. And we have
Then
pictures
we
of
can
it.
keep the town separate in some sort of from the school. Just
It's for future discussion, I think, with the select board.
okay. No, well, just
Right,
I'm
and-
thinking out loud. Good to have that
Yep.
thought. I didn't realize that place was available.
Yeah, that needs to be part of the next phase, is discussing that with the select board. And honestly, if you think about it, if we moved, combined some of these things and put them in co-located places, there's probably substantial savings that the town could see by combining some of these services that we have and even like supplies and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
and
there's
it's not the
a lot of
superin-
discussion to be had there.
Yeah, it's not the superintendent position. It's like the bookkeeping, accounting, finance. Those were the positions that we were looking at potentially.
All right, so we'll figure that out.
When you mentioned the town hall was an option, do you mean the old town hall?
No.
No, we looked at that. That is not usable.
Oh, it was quaint. I was in there the other day. It's quaint.
Yeah.
That's a word for it.
And this is really just like back end office space. It's not for a classroom or something. So no, there's a community room in the community center that's past the food pantry room.
Yep, the one used for the Cub Scouts across from the building inspector's office.
Yeah, I don't know that the Cub Scouts use it anymore though.
Right, I mean, back in the day they were. I get it.
Yeah.
That'd be good. I mean, presumably that area is already being heated and everything, so no new costs for that.
It needs some renovation.
I like the Fernald Lumber place. That sounded good. And it was a nice separated place, an independent place. I like that idea.
It's right across from the school too, which is nice.
And it's right across from the school too.
Pluses and minuses to both, I guess. We'll have to weigh all that out.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to be crossing 152 to go from one place to the other. I can tell you that.
They can drive.
Yeah. Any other questions for our committees? All right. Any other questions that anybody has or any updates? I will say, if you haven't bought your 300th anniversary blanket, you can do so at the recycling center this weekend from 9 to 12 on Saturday. I believe Rhoda will be there selling the blankets. So. Well, if nobody has anything, do we have a motion to close the meeting for December 10th?
I so move.
Seconded.
All right. All in favor? John Decker?
Aye.
I say aye. Sean Green?
Yes.
Michelle King?
She said yes.
Michael Keister?
I
Not abstaining today?
surprised you, didn't I?
Tom LeVay?
Yes.
Carol Martin?
Yes.
John Moran?
I
And Jim Stevens?
Yes.
Wonderful.
You didn't ask me.
You seconded the motion, or you,
Oh, all right. Okay.
When is the next meeting?
it is a week from tonight. There is no meeting on Tuesday. You can show up, but I won't be there. Neither will anybody else. But yeah, a week from today, The only time we'll have Tuesday, Thursday meetings again will be when it comes to the public hearings and the deliberative sessions. So that's not until January. So at this point, it's just gonna be every Thursday, except for Tuesday, December 29th. We'll have that presentation from the School Facilities Committee on the proposed expansion of the school. But I'll be sending out the agenda hopefully or Kelly will be sending out the agenda on Monday or Tuesday of next week. And then hopefully we have all of the information we need. A reminder to go to the SAU next Tuesday. The binders should be ready. And they have confirmed that they should have the electronic versions of the budget to me by Monday. I'll send them as soon as I can on Monday.
Is that the 14th you said that we picked those up?
The 15th, Tuesday.
15th, Tuesday, sorry. Yep.
Yeah, that's okay. And then Monday, the 14th, I'm hoping I'll have, at least by then, the electronic versions of all that information. Great. Well, have a great weekend, everyone. It was good seeing you. Thank you for all you do.
Good night.
Tim?
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.